Hello my friends, it is Shanna Warwick from Black Reefs, and this is part 2 of the video for my pals over at the Horseheads library who received the Nunofelted scarf kit. Now you have already gone through the first video, you've rolled your 800 times, you've read your instructions, and you've done a little test to be sure that the fibers have gone through the weave of the fabric, and that's by flipping that fabric over and blotting it with a towel and then looking across to see if you can see all those little fibers coming up through the weave of the silk. And now we're going to add it into hot water. So this is the shrinking phase of this process. So my water in my bowl here is all hot, and I'm just going to use a piece. This is a little sample that I laid out a little while ago. So I'm going to take this piece just like you would and dunk it into the hot water. I'm going to put a couple drops of Dawn soap on there, literally a couple drops, does not need much. But at this stage of the game, you want this piece to remain warm, wet, and soapy. So at any point that this does not feel warm, wet, or soapy, do what you got to do and get it back to that warm, wet, and soapy phase. And the first thing we do is we give it a throw down. So what happens here, I'm just going to set this down for a second. If this is your fabric, this is your wool on top, you've gotten that wool to go down into the weave of the silk. Now for this step, you're going to shock those fibers, you're going to whack them down, throw them down, and that locks those fibers into place. So you're getting it warm in the water and then you're throwing it down. This might move the camera a little bit. And you're throwing this down about 10 times. If your sink is wet, or if your piece is a little too wet, you might get a face full, you might get your neighbor wet. So this is a time to warn people that you're working with wet water. Usually when I record a video, I end up getting water right in my face. Maybe it won't happen this time. But it's just warm water and Dawn soap, so it's totally fine. After you've thrown that down about 10 times, you're going to put it back in that warm water. Let it drip out a little bit, and you're going to do another 10 times. And again, this is locking all those fibers down into place. All right, now the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to start agitating this between our hands. This is not feeling quite that soapy, like slickness to it. So I'm just gonna, again, I'm gonna add a couple drops of Dawn soap. I'm just gonna start agitating this piece. Now this piece that sorry about that. So this sample that I'm working on is a little bit smaller than the scarf that you're working with. But just keep in mind that I'm doing the exact same thing that you would do with your scarf. There's a little bit of agitation with my hands right now, but not a ton. And as it starts to kind of scrunch together, I'm just going to open it up again from the back because that wool is down through the weave of the silk. So I don't want to pull it up from the front. I want to kind of lightly open it up from the back. And this is, you know, where you want to have just a little bit of a lighter hand to it. And just be a little bit careful. Just be a little bit mindful where your fingernails are going, especially if you have bright red pointy fingernails like I do for this video. Again, you're opening it up from the back. And this is a more organic shape than the scarf that y'all are working on, but works the exact same way. So you can even see on mine, it's starting to shrink up. You're starting to get that puckeriness. And you're just gonna keep on doing the exact same thing. I'm gonna keep on going. Start adding in a little bit more pressure and then opening it back up, keeping it warm, wet, and soapy. Again, I'm going to keep on kind of opening it back up. If I wanted to keep it in the orientation of the scarf, meaning I wanted to keep it more in a rectangular shape, let's just pretend this is like the top of your scarf. I would take it along the top and I would do something like this, where I roll it together, and that's going to help kind of keep that shape of your scarf. And then you can go down the length of your scarf, open it back up, and just kind of keep playing. But you're looking for it to start doing this shrinking, which you can see here in the camera. And this is going to shrink up about 40 to 50%. So think about the size that your scarf started, and it's going to shrink up 40 to 50%. It does need to shrink up. It does need to get that puckery texture in the back, because that ensures that those fibers are going to stay locked into that silk. And you just keep warming it up, opening it back up. If you have any areas where the wool kind of is pulling away from the edges, you can do something like this. Like if this, let's see, let me just find like a spot. Okay, let's say that this little area of wool is kind of sticking out. You can go into it with your fingers and just kind of like roll it back into the fabric, that sort of thing. But you're just gonna keep on working it. And you'll know you're done when you get that tightened texture in the back of your piece. Merino is one of those fibers that, you know, all of a sudden it feels like it's not doing anything, and then all of a sudden you can kind of start to feel it locking up. You can even see the size of this. See how it's got that texture there? And you'll just get a little bit more aggressive as you go. And again, this is going to happen a little bit faster for me because this is such a small piece. For you, it'll go a little bit slower, but you're going to do the exact same thing. And this will just really ensure that all of those fibers are down into the weave of that silk. You've got that nice shrunk up fiber. But again, this is going to take a little bit longer for you because you've got a little bit more surface area for you to work on versus the sample that I'm doing. But you really just squish it together. Give it a little bit of pressure, and then just open it back up until you've got it nice and shrunk up in the back. And the last thing you'll want to do for this is I would just rinse it out in cold water and then put it in a bucket of water with just like a tablespoon or something of just plain white vinegar, and just let it sit for a minute and rinse it out a couple times until you can't smell that vinegar, and that just neutralizes the pH and makes sure that all of the soap is out of your little scarfy piece. Again, here's what the texture is going to look like on the back. It may even scrunch up a little bit more for you. But please remember where to find me. blckbts.com is my website. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook does have quite a few different videos for you to watch. There's a couple extra videos here on YouTube. But reach out if you've got any questions. And yeah, send me a picture, or if you post these online, tag me online so I can check out your work. All right, y'all, enjoy your fun process.